Hello class, welcome back again to our math class. Today we're going to be talking about place value, particularly working with three-digit numbers. So throughout your time in school, you've learned all about all kinds of numbers, starting with the number 1 probably, and then counting all the way up to 100, which is something you've probably done just about every day for years. So we're very familiar with numbers 1 through 100, but when it comes to larger numbers, they can be a little bit trickier. It's a similar concept in the way that the numbers just keep getting bigger and there are more and more of them. But we're going to look at place value today and what it really means to have those numbers in the different order that they're in when we look at them represented with the symbols or the numbers on a piece of paper. We're going to talk about that more. But first I want to talk about, in particular, groupings. So oftentimes when we count to large numbers, especially when we're starting to count, how many days we've been in school or something like that, we're counting our ones and we're counting by ones, and we usually reach 10 after 10 days, and when we reach that number 10, one of our benchmark numbers, we sometimes will be counting with sticks and we'll group those sticks together. And we'll do it again when we reach another 10. And then we can do something called skip counting, and we'll be counting by 10. So instead of counting every single one from all those days, we'll count the bundles of 10 first and go 10, 20, 30. Is this ringing a bell? And when you have 10 groups of 10, you count by 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So then you have 100 of something. So similar to how we group in groupings of 10, like 10 ones, we can also do that with hundreds. So that every 10 tens, you would make a giant bundle of 100. And then you could count by hundreds and you have 100, 200, 300, etc. So it's also one of those benchmark numbers that's representative of a very large quantity. And we're going to see how we can build up to that. So right now, we're going to look at this place value chart on the screen. And we've discussed this, here, let me move it a little bit, before. And you can see here that there is the decimal point. So we talked a little bit about decimals with our decimat activity, and how decimals, or the numbers after that with tenths, hundredths, thousandths, etc., are representative of smaller numbers than 1, pieces that don't quite make up the whole number of 1 yet. When we go to the left of the decimal when looking at the number, we see the ones place, the tens place. We're very familiar with these numbers, or I hope so, and then the hundredths place. And when we've been counting, we've been seeing the hundredths, maybe the hundreds place, as 1 or 2. But we're going to look at representing some larger values and what that really means today. So we're going to dive right in, but real quick before we do, you can continue to do the same thing and continue to have larger numbers. The higher we count, the more numbers and the larger ones we add together to reach thousands and 10,000, etc., all the way to million and billion, but I'm not going to get into that today. So let's go and dive a little bit more into place value, looking at these 3-digit numbers. So when we look at a number like this, the number represented by a 4, an 8, and a 9, we would read this number as 489. And what does that really mean when we say or see this number? Well, it means that we have 4 hundreds, 8 tens, and 9 ones. And that number is representative of those quantities all together. They're all added together, and we can see that they're in different groupings because they're of different sizes, maybe. But together, that they make up the number 489. So we're going to keep going along here, and I'm going to invite you to kind of think about, like how I've designated with this first one, what each of these numbers really means. So when we look at this number 672, or we could also read it as 672, what does that mean? So if you were thinking in your head, 672, does that mean I have all these random numbers? No. Maybe you were thinking, well, I see the 6 is in this position next to the 7 and the 2. If I know the 2 is in the ones place and the 7 is in the tens place, the 6 would be in the hundreds place. So then you would say, then I have 6 hundreds, 7 tens, or 70, and 2 ones, 2. 672. All right, let's see if we can do the next one. What do you think about this number, 348, or 348? If you were thinking about it and you were going off of what we've been talking about, you would think, the 3 is in the hundreds place, so there are 3 hundreds, 4 tens, and 8 ones, or 348. Another way we can look at this and think about it is if you fill in the other numbers with zeros. So let me see if I can type this out here. If I could find my mouse, it would be helpful. There you go. So this is also the same as 300 plus 40 plus 8. So that's what we see here if we break it up into pieces a little bit better and more. We would see the numbers 348. Okay? So now I want you to look at the next number and think about what does that number represent when we see 427.2. If you saw that number and were a little confused when that decimal got there, I snuck it in, you're right. You see the number here represents a whole number, but it also has a decimal involved. So we have the 4 hundreds, 2 tens, 7 ones, and the little decimal is read as and 2 tenths. So this would be the number 427 and 2 tenths. I really want to encourage you to focus on saying that as 2 and 2 tenths, or whatever the decimal may be, instead of 0.2, because that helps us to remember what that period and what that number after it really means. So 427 and 2 tenths. All right, see if you can figure out the last one. It's a little tricky maybe. Okay, so our last number is represented by the 143.05, or as we should read it, 143 and 5 hundredths. So you'll see here that we have 100, we have 4 tens, we have 3 ones, and we have 0 tenths and 5 hundredths. So we have that 0 there to show us when it comes to how many tenths we don't have any, but we do have hundredths, which is why there's that 0. The 0 holds that place and shows us, no, we don't have any tenths, even though we have hundredths. It's important that we have that 0 because otherwise we would think that we have 5 tenths, when really we don't. We only have 5 hundredths, which is much, much smaller than 5 tenths if you think about our decimat activity and how much of that rectangle you fill up. The hundredths are really small, whereas the tenths were a bit bigger. So that's what we've been looking at in terms of place value. There's going to be an assignment, a worksheet I will have you work on with some online manipulatives to help you to conceptualize and represent these numbers and what they mean. I'm not going to seek in any decimals this time just because it's a little bit harder, but I want you to do your best on it, and don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions. All right, thank you.